Lake Sakakawea in North Dakota. The stormiest day of my journey so far.
I think I can handle it. And honestly, it's much simpler to paddle against them, and then you see the waves coming at you.
I want to follow America's longest river, its entire length, source to sea, almost 4,000 miles across America, to the people who live here.
I think if you feel it, you reach out and grab it. That's like number one in my head.
What a view!
Feel that fish. Plates on their back and sides are...
From the mountains, the Missouri River flows across the prairie, the Midwest to the Mississippi, and then to the deep south until it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. The third leg will bring me from North Dakota across the major reservoirs all the way to Kansas City, to the state that's named after the river, Missouri. The wind keeps blowing over the lake. White caps on the waves are usually a strong indication that the wind is way too powerful for paddling against it. Still, I push on. In the evening, the wind even increases. The tent survives the night with no damage, but it's impossible to paddle right now. Even though it's not far to the end of Lake Sakakawea and to the dam. In the afternoon, I can finally continue, with good current below the dam, back in the flow. And I'm not alone anymore. Each year, a handful of paddlers start their Missouri adventure in Three Forks, Montana.
That's right. You encounter snow at all?
Connor has already been paddling for many weeks. But usually chances are low that we paddlers actually meet each other on such a long river. Connor is heading to St. Louis.
Water's pretty cold though.
Or, if everything goes well, even to the sea.
Well, I'm glad we timed it well, Connor.
How's the trip been so far? Has it met what you, I mean, did you have expectations at all?
I went into this pretty blind. I definitely the first week thought I was in a little bit over my head. I got caught one day windbound. The next day I went out, busted my lip. The wind hit me so hard. My lips were terrible. I showed up to the marina at the very end of the lake, and they they kind of looked at me funny because I came in just windburnt and just a mess. So, but it definitely taught you to be patient, you know.
She makes us pretty humble, doesn't she?
Yeah, I mean, it was so different from what I was expecting. Like I said, you take it in stride and just see what there is to offer.
Well, you know what the mountain climbers are saying when they're asked why they're climbing this mountain, right? They say, because it's there.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what this is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody has to
I never
paddle the
thought about
Missouri.
it like that, but you're just, because you can.
Because we can, yes.
It's a good thing, just getting out there. Everyone always talks about doing this and that, and they never act on these. They want to sit back and wait, and I don't think that you should wait. I think if you feel it, you reach out and grab it.
There you go. That's what this is all about, you know?
Absolutely.
Connor is going to spend the night here. I want to continue on for a bit. The next day, I reach the capital of North Dakota, Bismarck. And just downriver, the next reservoir is already waiting. Lake Oahe, the longest of all. It's 230 miles to Pierre, the capital of the next state, South Dakota. The coastline of Oahe is longer than the one of California because of all the bays. Nothing but water and prairie. But this year, the water is really low, like almost everywhere on my journey. The drought is visible all across North America. Fortunately, my boat doesn't need much water under the bow. Even fully loaded, it floats really well. On the shore of Lake Oahe, Sitting Bull. This is the burial site of the legendary Sioux leader. The Missouri now crosses the land of the Lakota Sioux. They are one of the largest tribes in North America. Today, about 100,000 tribal members are living in the USA. But the natives have to share the land with white farmers and ranchers. Pollock, South Dakota, founded over 100 years ago because of the railroad. When the Missouri was dammed in the 1950s, the town was moved to the South Shore, where it still sits today. One stroke at a time. Now my mantra for the trip. On such a huge lake, you feel like you are not making any progress at all, especially when the wind is blowing hard against you. It remains extremely windy, with gusts up to 60 miles an hour and more. That's why I have to use special care to secure my tent.
I just love the Dakotas, you know, North and South Dakota, and a lot of people think there's nothing to see, it's all just flat lands, but it's not. To me, it's like the epitome of the prairie, the wide, epic landscape of the Wild West in a way, you know. But it's notorious for the wind, so that's the trade-off for a paddler, at least. And yes, they are a challenge, but if you don't challenge yourself every now and then, how else you're gonna grow? So I just love it out here.
It takes me 9 days to cross the 230 miles of Lake Oahe. That's an average of 25 miles per day, even without any current and despite the wind and waves. The 3 major reservoirs are now behind me, without having to pause for a single day. I feel pretty lucky, even though it's been strenuous and grueling. But there are still 3 more lakes ahead of me. On Lake Francis Case, I am already expected.
Hi! Are you Dirk?
I am. How do you know?
We've been tracking you since you left Montana.
So you are?
I'm Cheryl. Yeah, and that's Roger.
Hello, hello. Hey Roger, thanks for coming out on a windy day like today.
Yeah, I was surprised you were still moving, but I guess the wind was good.
What's your wave coming?
Whoa!
That's what this river can do.
Well, I didn't know I was going surfing today, but I was.
Shall we go somewhere where it's quieter, you think?
Let's go over to this beach.
And how often do you come out here paddling?
Just about any day I can. Yeah. If the weather's good, every day.
What about you, Roger? How often do you paddle?
Well, not as often as Cheryl. I try to paddle a few times a month, but I'd rather be riding horse a lot.
Oh, you ride horses? How many horses do you have?
I have 2 horses, yeah. They're really good horses, you know. I don't know what your plans are, but if you'd want to go for a ride, we could probably arrange something like that.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Hard to say. Here you go, Red. Hey, that's the way to go.
Oops. High five, Roger.
Pick up Roger.
Yeah. And then
Cheryl and Roger live very close to the lake.
Very dangerous.
They invite me to their
Go out and
ranch.
just float around.
yeah.
And we trade boats for saddles.
Like that.
Roger's 2 horses are quarter horses.
How many acres do you have?
I have 400 acres, and then I probably have 3,000 acres I could ride on.
Oh, nice.
Roger has leased his land to private ranchers in the neighborhood. They graze their cattle here while he enjoys the freedom of not having to work anymore.
What a view.
Indeed, what a view. Wow, that's gorgeous.
About as perfect as it can get.
That's right, yeah. Thank you so much, Roger, for taking me out here. That's really awesome.
It's my pleasure, because I just love to share it with others, you know, and it's South Dakota has some beautiful things, and a lot of people don't get to experience the beautiful river up on the bluffs like this, and so it's really nice. And riding horse makes it a little special.
That is true.
Yes.
Cowboy dreams come true.
Yeah. Yeah. The prairie is something that's developed over centuries of years, and there's not very much of it left in the United States, and so whatever we can keep is great.
So you are a caretaker of some sort.
I certainly try, yeah. If I can keep it as native and the way it is now, that would be my goal in life.
And something else is important to Roger and Cheryl: hospitality. Especially with a paddler that the river has brought to them.
Does anybody want enchilada or tortilla or whatever?
Yeah.
This is. Thank you so much for having me.
You betcha.
Cheers. Thank you for
Nice
rescuing
meeting
me.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Great to have you here.
Glad to
For the
have
River
you here.
Angels.
Yeah, well, we just love to have people stop by and have a time when they can rest a little bit and enjoy a good meal and before they hit the water again.
For me, being a kayaker, I live vicariously through you and all the other paddlers that come down the river. I love what you do. I want to do it, but I don't have the drive, the energy, whatever to do it. So I just enjoy your stories.
But you're paddling on the river or on the lake, right?
Right.
You just don't do the whole thing.
I just
Yeah.
don't start up in Montana and go all the way to the Gulf.
Well, you can do segments.
I do short segments, 10-mile segments, maybe 50. I
Right.
can do 50 in a day on the moving water.
Yeah, with water.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's like, we kind of think like the old days when people would come through and everybody always welcomed everybody. And we want to still keep that same thing going, you know, and show the love that we have for others, you know.
After encounters like that, it's really hard to say goodbye. I stay for the night, sleeping in a real bed. The next morning, I start early. The journey to the finish is still long. I'm not even halfway through. After Francis Case, I paddle on Lewis and Clark Lake, the last reservoir, and the smallest, only about 30 miles long.
Man, these cliffs are spectacular. And this actually is the Nebraska side, so South Dakota's on the other side, and the river or the lake is the state line. And up ahead of me is a site that I was really looking forward to for a long time, because I can now see Gavin's Point Dam, which is the last, really the last dam of all. So behind the dam there's free-flowing water, almost 2,000 miles unobstructed, all the way to the Gulf. Finally.
I meet Tom Curran. He works for the Army Corps of Engineers that built the dams and runs the hydroelectric power plants.
Gavin's Point has 3 power generators here. We produce about 40,000 megawatts of electricity, which would satisfy the needs of about 60,000 homes. That power is pushed out over the power grid in the region, so the 5-state region gets the power from this plant.
So would Yankton be?
Yankton would
provided?
be one of those
Okay.
as well. All right, so because of the drought, we've reduced the releases out of this dam and the whole system, as a matter of fact, because of the low water levels in the lakes. So this is a relatively low flow for us during this time of year. We're picking up some water now in the Yellowstone, so the dams are filling up. There's Lake Sakakawea, Lake Oahe, the 3 big ones upriver. Those are the ones that hold the most water and actually feel the worst impacts during a drought.
For pelicans, the dams are the perfect place to fish.
What's interesting down here when they do that soaring, and you know it takes them a long time to land, you'll see the Asian carp will be boiling underneath them as they strafe over them. It's kind of reminds you of some fighter plane or something that's going over the water.
It needs a better brake system.
Yeah.
So you know when you paddle and you see these birds, it's really an amazing sight because you know they soar over you and then sometimes they land right next to you on the water.
Oh wow.
And that's really neat to see. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy having them around, you know, because sometimes you're lonely out there and then you have the pelicans as companions.
They probably think you have a snack for them or something.
I have never tried to feed them. Maybe I should.
I don't know.
Friends
They
for
say
life.
not to.
Okay.
So right now we have all 3 units generating.
And the water that goes through here comes all the way from where I started my journey 10 weeks ago.
So the water that starts up in Montana, gets into the Missouri River, has to come down through Gavin's Point. Gavin's is the lowest, most downstream dam in the system. So it is the gateway to the rest of the river.
What was the original reason or purpose, Tom, these dams were built?
Well, there's 6 dams on the Missouri River main stem, and the primary purpose is for flood control. They are also built for navigation, irrigation, water supply, and recreation purposes for the region. So that was a choice that the country made to do that, to build those dams.
Yeah.
And there are trade-offs.
Sure.
This all sounds totally plausible, makes sense, and hydroelectric power is sustainable. But when you paddle on a river that's wild and untamed, and then you witness how dramatically the landscape has changed because of the reservoirs, that's really hard to comprehend. And those dams are also the reason why a dinosaur fish that has been living in the Missouri for eons might actually go extinct. Just below the dam in Yankton, I visit a federal fish hatchery where they try to prevent that. Sam Stukel works here as a fish biologist.
Some of these are 25 years old. Many of them are over 10 years old. It's kind of a living library of pallid sturgeon that can be used for all sorts of research, answer questions about the species, you know, help us learn about the ways that they grow and reproduce and perhaps how they could help humans and other species. This is like any endangered species, once they're gone, you lose everything that they could have possibly provided in terms of knowledge or help or answers. And it's very, very unique that we have such a large set of fish available for that type of thing. They are like a living dinosaur. A lot of people say they resemble a crocodile or an alligator or a shark.
Yeah.
A fish without a single hard bone in their body. It's all a cartilage skeleton. Their very direct ancestors were around 70 million years ago.
70 million years
Yeah,
ago.
you're really looking at something from another era when you see these fish. Feel that fish. One of the unique things about sturgeon is the way they feel. These plates on their back and sides are like a very primitive scale. They're called scutes. They're bony plates. They don't have regular scales like a modern fish, but those are basically a suit of armor.
Yeah.
Protects them from predators. They certainly don't have to worry about getting eaten. It's all about the habitat problems for this fish. Under the head there, you see the barbels. They're whiskers, kind of like tentacles. Those are very sensitive to chemicals in the water, like similar to our nose, sense of smell. They have that, they have electrical sensors, they have very tiny eyes. All of that together tells you this is a muddy water fish.
Since 1990, the pallid sturgeon has been on the list of endangered species. Thanks to the efforts of the hatchery team here in Yankton, it might actually have a chance.
We had a species that was disappearing pretty quickly, and without this hatchery effort, probably would be about gone by now. And the reason for that is these are what you would call a specialist species. You've got your generalists and your specialists. These were so highly evolved for the conditions of the old muddy Missouri River and Mississippi River. We built a lot of dams that are great for people that blocked this fish from hundreds of miles of not only the Missouri, but its tributaries, spawning grounds. These fish have been around for millions of years and seen crazy changes on Earth that we can't imagine, and we humans come along and in the span of 100 years virtually make them disappear. It would be very unfortunate and short-sighted if we let that happen during our lifetimes for future generations. This is our pallid sturgeon production building, where the fish we hatch in the spring spend the first year of their lives. And we release them when they're almost exactly 1 year old. We have both the fish that hatched here this spring that are just 2 weeks old.
2 weeks.
Yes. And these little hatchlings at this stage, this is when they disappear. They are having a hard time adapting to the river, in particular at this vulnerable, tiny stage of their life. And yeah, I feel a personal connection to them, having grown up with that being such a big part of my life. I want my kids and grandkids to have this diversity we have and to be able to appreciate it. I don't want these to disappear on my watch, basically.
After leaving Yankton, the river turns wild again. But not because of rapids or whitewater. Instead, the Missouri is now allowed to do what she's supposed to do, to branch out, form sloughs, islands, and bars. And nobody can change that. It is the last wild section of my journey. Before the young sturgeons are set free, they get transmitters so Sam and his colleagues are able to track the fish. The biologists hope that these fish will survive in the river long enough to reproduce, so that one day the pallid sturgeon may not be endangered any longer. Yankton marks not only the beginning of the lower Missouri River, it's also the start of the longest free-flowing waterway in North America. 2,000 miles of river from here to the Gulf of Mexico. After only half a day of paddling downriver, the Missouri brings me to a place that I have not expected here at all. Vermilion, South Dakota is home to one of the most renowned museums in the world. Arian Sheets is a curator for the National Music Museum. The museum is actually closed at the moment for construction and expansion, but Arian takes me behind the scenes.
So everything has a number and everything has a different aisle.
Yes. Ah. It was the first one.
Very good.
This is a saxophone by Adolph Sax, who was the inventor of the instrument. This instrument dates to 1857. Can you imagine? 160-year-old saxophone.
But it gets even older, much older.
That's a big room.
It's a cabinet of curiosities.
It is. What do you have in here?
Well, we've got everything from Lionel Hampton's very own vibraphone to the oldest playable harpsichord in the world. And it's really in miraculous condition. And it plays. I'm not a keyboard player, so.
Oh, wow.
And this is an instrument that people have come from all over the world to play and record on. It's really a treasure in the historic keyboard community.
How many instruments do you have in here, Arian?
Gosh, in the total collection, it's something like 13 or 14,000.
What kind of treasure is this now?
This is a Gibson Explorer electric guitar, which is pretty much the rarest and most covetable of Gibson solid body electric guitars.
That's a lot of stories.
I'm very interested in the stories that go with the objects. To me, an object is just a three-dimensional book. It tells you things just without words. So knowing who played it, how it was played, where it was played, those types of things help an object come alive in the present time.
Wow. It's beautiful too. I've been trying to teach myself the guitar for, 20 years?
And now you're here to play us the world's quietest rock concert.
That is right, right?
Guitar fanatics might get teary just looking at these treasures.
So carry your guitar.
The next room is full of precious harps. Only 2 of these exist worldwide.
We have one, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art has the other one.
Really?
Yes.
Do you have favorite instruments here in this collection that you really enjoy the most?
Well, I enjoy all kinds of things, but there are definitely some that attract more attention than others that are more famous names.
Like what?
Well, Antonio Stradivari, for one.
You have Stradivari's here in this
Oh,
collection?
yeah, we do. We've got several of them. So, would you like to see one?
Of course.
Ah, let's go.
What a beautiful instrument.
It really is.
And that is a Stradivari from what year, do you know?
It's from 1693, and it was the concert instrument of the soloist Kyung-Hwa Chung for many years.
May I touch it?
Well, if you put gloves on.
Really?
Yes.
Down there?
Yes.
Wow.
It's really holding history, isn't it?
I'm getting goosebumps. Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I likened it to when I first came to the museum it was in 1994. I remembered walking in and all of a sudden instruments that I had seen in postcards. And to me it was like, oh my God, I entered the building and there's Elvis and he's alive.
Right.
Except instead of being Elvis, it was Stradivari and Amati. And it was really, for me, a young violin nerd, it was like meeting celebrities.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Elvis is also in the collection, with a guitar.
I can feel the spirit of the king evaporating out of it. Can I hold it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like the king did? Because that was in his hands.
Yes.
That's pretty special. I'm such a huge fan,
Yeah, yeah. And on the same day that you held a Stradivari violin.
That's right. I don't know which one is more special. And you know what the funny thing is? The river kind of connects the story because, it's here on the Missouri, and the Missouri will bring me to Memphis, Elvis's hometown.
Yeah.
So the river connects everything and everybody, right?
It really does, yeah.
Omaha, Nebraska on the right bank, then St. Joseph on the left bank. I reach the state that's named after the river, Missouri. St. Joseph is well known, partly because of Jesse James. The infamous outlaw lived in St. Joseph, incognito, but in 1882, he was shot here in his house. In the 1800s, St. Joseph had also been the terminus of the railroad. And the legendary Pony Express was born right here in 1860. The town served as the gate to the Wild West and was booming, bringing in lots of wealth. Practically everybody who intended to head further west into the Promised Land, for example, on the Oregon Trail, had to be outfitted here. The merchants in St. Joseph became rich. They built splendid mansions for themselves and left a true treasure of historical architecture. One of the most beautiful buildings is the J.C. Wyatt House from 1891. It belongs to Jim Polone, originally from New York, where he sang opera and was destined to become the next Pavarotti, as he once told me.
Hope you're hungry. I'm always hungry.
Oh, that's cool.
Now he runs the best restaurant in town, and sometimes he surprises his guests with a serenade.
Thank you for being here. Hold on.
One-hit wonder dog.
La donna è mobile qua più mal vento muta d'accento e di pensiero muta d'accento e di pensiero.
There you are, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Did everybody enjoy themselves? Good. I'm glad you all joined us tonight.
All guests have to make a reservation. 6 times a week, Jim and his partner offer a changing 3-course menu. Besides the amazing dishes, the historical ambience is part of the success. And Jim's overwhelming hospitality. He has created his own little universe here in St. Joseph, far away from the hustle and bustle of his hometown, New York.
I do not miss New York at all. Honestly, I am so happy here. I am going to die in this house, and I'm going to haunt the next people that live here. But life is good here. I mean, when you're from a big city, you think that's the way everybody lives. And you have to be willing to take a chance, take a risk. We came out here, and I'm just absolutely shocked at the quality of life you can have here versus the lack thereof in New York City.
And what is your connection to the river?
I've always lived near a major body of water, be it the ocean back in New York, here the Missouri River, which was a major source of trade for the people that lived here. And it was what made their business successful. The river itself provided the industry that they needed, the transportation that they needed, and that was one of the basic building blocks to make St. Joseph what it is today. This started off as a fur trapping city, and because of the river, they were able to conduct their business. And eventually, at the turn of the century, there were more millionaires living here per capita than anywhere else, and all of it was because of the source of the Missouri River.
In the past, stern wheelers and other boats transported all kinds of goods on the river. Back then, the Missouri was shallow and dangerous. That has since changed. The barges today don't have to fear to run aground anymore. I reach Kansas City, the second largest city in Missouri. On September 5, 1856, the stern wheeler Arabia left the port here fully loaded with goods and headed west. But she never made it to the frontier. To find out why, I visit this museum in Kansas City.
There's this big knobby thing on the side right there. Here. This was the tree that sank the boat. Found sticking through the side of it. Boat hits it, pushes the whole boat up into the air, pierced through the side, and come crashing back down and broke off inside of the boat. Still there after all those many
This
years.
is David Hawley. He found the Arabia, and he dug her out back in the 80s.
The left side and one on the right side. This map here is a map between St. Louis and Kansas City that shows all the names of the boats that sank. But the life of a steamboat on the river was only 3 to 5 years, or a very short life. It was such a dangerous river that all of these hundreds of boats have sunk, like the Arabia. Here, no one knew for sure where it was. You say, well, was it over there? Or maybe it was down a little further. And they just had no idea where to go find it. And well, let's see here. Kansas City, up the river about 6 miles, and that's where the Arabia lays, right there, in the old river, the old Brown River.
David found her in a field not far from Kansas. She was buried 30 feet under. And while most of the wood was rotten, the load was in almost pristine condition. It just had to be cleaned. Overall, there were millions of individual items, including groceries.
These pickles, believe it or not, are 165 years old.
Are they still edible, you think?
They look like it.
Yeah.
One of our guys, Jerry, took a bottle just like this one, opened the cork and ate a pickle out of it. He said it tasted just like a store-bought one. Didn't crunch, but otherwise it was great.
There's not enough space here to display all items, so a lot of them are conserved under ice.
Inside of here are shoes and shoe parts. But in the ice, as long as the air won't touch them, they're fine. They're great. Yeah, and when we started, we didn't know how. We were heating and air conditioning guys. We put in furnaces and air conditioners. And so to go out and dig up steamboats and learn the archaeology and how to display and how to run a museum, that's all learned stuff.
Hey, good to see you. Good to see you.
Matt is David's son. Here in the lab of the museum, they prep shoes for the exhibition.
Make sure that the artifact is completely dry. So after 4 months, you get 1 boot.
It's a huge, enormous collection. We've been cleaning for 30 years, doing just what you see. We're still not done. We still have years to go. So in the early days, it was an adventure. Let's go dig up a steamboat. It'll be great fun. It won't cost very much. It won't take much time, you know. And we weren't thinking museums then, but as we went through the collection, as it came out of the earth and we looked to see what it was, we realized this was a treasure that ought to be kept and not sold and split apart. This is one boat. This is one story of the frontier. The Malta, another steamboat, a different story, a different collection. This is settler supplies going west. The next boat I'd like to dig, the Malta, Indian trade stories. And I'm anxious to figure that out. I'm ready to go down and take a peek.
The Malta sank in the Missouri in 1841. Later, a small town was founded and named after the incident. Matt and I are meeting the farmer who owns the field where she is buried. Jim Backus usually grows corn here. He leads us to a bare area in the middle of one of his fields.
This is the front of the boat right here where this stake here is at.
So once we got into the land and we pinpointed the hot spot, which is this pole here in the middle.
Hot spot meaning?
The hot spot meaning that's where the magnetometer was picking up the signal of the boilers. So the highest magnetic reading was coming from right here.
Treasure hunters need one thing more than anything else: patience. Matt's dad had been in the fields for weeks, over and over again. Until one day, he finally got a signal. But only test drilling would reveal if that was really the Malta and what kind of load she carried. Then, the moment of relief.
You know what, guys? I think we're done. Oh, wow! Look at that! I think we're done.
That's awesome, man.
So we found little pieces of pottery that we found on board. When we found this, that's when we know this is going up the river. Nothing like this is going to be coming back down. You're going to have nothing but the furs on board. So when you find something like this, you know this is a boat worth digging. So this was a boat carrying supplies up the river to stock up the mountain men, Jim Bridger, Kit Carson, the guys who were trapping and trading with Native Americans. So you're gonna have their supplies, the things they actually need to live up, you know, and do their work, but then also you're gonna have a large cache of buttons, beads, metal decorative pieces, things that Native Americans wanted to trade. So we're gonna find things that you literally can't find anywhere else in the world. The boat is one thing, but it's really the stories of the treasure and the people that they were going up to supply. And so an entire generation of Americans, their stories, they're connected with steamboats. So that's what we want to go find.
How long it will take to excavate the Malta, Matt and his father have no idea. I keep paddling across the heartland of America. Instead of wild, breathtaking landscapes, agriculture and industrial areas now dominate. but a lot of the silos and plants on the banks are dilapidated. Silent witnesses from an era when the Missouri was used way more heavily. The current remains strong. I can now set a new distance record almost every day. 60 miles plus are possible. And even if the camps are not as idyllic and wild, with a sunset, campfire, and river view, each campsite becomes a paradise.
Life is good.
I know the river is different now, you know, it's tamed and we have altered it, and honestly I struggled with it when I came from the wild section. But now, I think the further I go downriver, the more I enjoy it, because it brings me to great people, great stories. You discover something new every day almost. And the current's good, so I'm making good progress. I really enjoy it. It's the diversity of the river that just makes it so special. This is hopefully not boiling. Oh, it's almost boiling over, and I think it's almost ready. So, yeah. Broccoli pasta.